almost done. So I need your attention for just like a few more minutes. So the part that I'd like to present now is on, okay, now you have like your story together, you have your slides, and now you need to perform. Okay, so you are supposed to be on stage for 13 minutes next week to deliver your message. Okay, let's look at a few examples, a few tips, basically to do this effectively. So I'm not going to recap again why this is important, but you know, the thing is that most of the time these presentations are done like orally. You just have like a few slides, but then what people will remember are the arguments that you make orally when you present. Okay, and so that's why I think you need to be particularly effective in this part. So one thing that actually happens quite a lot is that we lack confidence when we present. So we tend to either stick to written notes on pieces of paper, or we have other solutions basically to remember what we need to say. And obviously that's not optimal, right? Because if you don't show like that you're confident in what you're saying, then people that are listening to you, they don't believe what you're saying. Okay? And it's as simple as that. And so so a better approach to paper notes is to have what we call slide notes. Okay? Slide notes are when you use basically, you decouple basically the screen of your computer from you know, the presentation that goes on the wall. So if you look at the screen of your computer, you see basically what you're supposed to say, and these notes are not visible to the audience. Okay, so you can look at that and say, okay, here I'm supposed to talk about 3 things, and then you actually use that as a prompt to remember what to say. But obviously, if you start reading like your notes like this, you know, you end up basically with the same effect of having like a piece of paper in your hands. Okay, so eventually it may happen that during the presentation you have a blank, you forgot completely what you're supposed to say, and so you can look at this as the slide notes and just do as a prompt to remember what to say, but don't stick to it meticulously, because people will perceive that you're still reading. Okay. So the ultimate goal when you deliver a very important presentation is that you have internalized the message that you want to deliver so much that you don't need to read anymore. Okay. The second point or the second tip that I want to make is that you should try to engage with the audience. Okay. Oftentimes when we present, we interpret like delivering a presentation as doing like a monologue for half an hour, and that is super boring. Okay. Even like asking a simple question and then asking people to raise their hands, or making them smile at some point, it's a way to engage with the audience. And it's very, very important because, or looking in the eyes of your audience is very, very important as a way to engage, because then you create a connection and people are more likely to follow what you're going to say. Okay? You see me also moving a lot when I'm in class. You know, it doesn't mean that it's the perfect, or what I'm doing is perfect, but I think at least, I mean, you should try to do something on stage. I mean, because if you're standing here on the podium and you present with the same tone of voice, all of your slides, you're going to bore to death, basically, whoever is listening to you. Okay? And so you should try to vary your voice, your posture, make gestures, and Italians make lots of gestures, but in general, I think it's just a little bit, it's okay. And you know, it's interesting to treat this as a conversation. You start by asking a question, you hear like perhaps like a few answers, but even if it's like a rhetorical questions, to which most of the people will react with either a laugh or with silence, that is enough already to engage people in the conversation. Okay, so you're not just doing a monologue, as I mentioned before, but you are trying to really engage with the audience, so you can literally ask them to do something. Sometimes, you know, in some presentation, you see people asking people to stand up or to answer by raising their hands, and all these things actually increase this back and forth between the presenter and the audience. Yes?
For this one, it is a little bit risky or not? Because you give some randomness to your presentation.
You mean asking questions to the audience?
Yeah, or telling them to do something, or maybe they are not reactive. So the presentation will be bad.
Well, you know, obviously if you ask them to do something and they're all still in their chairs, then you can always make a joke about it, right? So it depends on how you react to their reactions, right? If you're asking them to do something that is impossible, that they don't do it, and then you get stuck on that, then obviously it looks bad on your presentation. But, you know, typically people are quite collaborative when they're listening to a presentation, especially if they are engaged in what you're presenting, and they tend to react, right? Just try not to overdo it. That's also something that might become quite annoying if you're asking them to do multiple times, because, you know, they might not be willing to do all of these things. Okay?
And those that are not the principals, like the first six that you present.
Yeah, I didn't get the question.
When you start the course, you present 6 principles.
Right.
And now you are presenting something else. What is the difference between both?
Oh, well, I said at the very beginning of this module that this is just about like what you do on stage. These are tips for your performance, while the other points were more general principle for the whole presentation. So on how you structure your story and so forth, right? The second module we talked about like how to design the slides. This one is on what you should do when you're on stage. Okay. Yeah. So, and tell stories. I mentioned this multiple times, but if you can say, you know, I interviewed somebody and this somebody told me this and that, and then you start by telling, you know, what are the struggles of these persons and how, you know, whatever you're doing is important in the life of this person. Then, you know, people can relate to stories, and so it's a good way to engage with the audience. Yeah, it can bring really, you know, hammer the message home. Yes?
It's a good idea to put the audience on a role, on a story. So now you are a freelancer, you try to manage your life and your private life and your public life, and you face this problem. And then
you can, but you know, depending on how complex that is, to step into that kind of role, it might be a little bit overwhelming sometimes for the audience, right?
okay.
So if you ask the audience to react to your presentation, try to do it with very simple things. You get stuff that everybody can do, right? Raising a hand, laughing, or reacting to a question, saying yes or no. These are the kind of stuff that everybody can do, right? But if you're asking them to do like a very complex exercise of imagination, then they might not follow exactly what your instructions. Okay? And make them laugh. I mean, humor is actually very important in presentation. Will people sometimes will, you know, wake people up, and you know, you will see, for instance, in many professional presentations, people do on purpose some mistakes. Okay, and they do mistakes on purpose on this presentation because they want people to laugh. Sometimes you laugh because you think, you know, the presenter is acting weirdly or he has forgotten something. I remember, for instance, I was watching a presentation some years back, and the presenter intentionally put like a picture of his son in the deck, right? And say, oh, I made a mistake, right? and then he moved on with his concept. But that thing actually woke up everybody and said, oh, let's pay attention to what's happening next. Maybe there's a picture of him naked or something like that, right? And but in general, I think it's always like a good idea to do something funny, do something unexpected to keep people engaged. And I spoke specifically about like the very beginning that is very, very important. Same principle we have seen multiple times in this course. When people land on your webpage, they look at your service or app for the very first time. They decide in a split amount of seconds whether they like it or not, whether it's for them or not. Same thing happens during presentations. Okay, the very first 10 seconds that you speak are fundamental to engage with your audience. If you mess it up in those first 10 seconds, probably you're going to lose them. People will start looking at their email, they start reading their Facebook, they're going to look at their mobile phone, and then you lose them. And so it's important to be very super interesting in those 10 seconds. And again, you're performing, you're an actor. You need to use your body language, you use the tone of your voice, facial expression, also objects. You can take like one object in the room and use it to attract attention, saying, I'm going to drink this. No, I'm not going to drink this. So I remember, for instance, 2 years ago, there was like one of the teams of the interaction design class that actually was working on a project for solar panels. And one of the guy actually came into the class with a sonar panel that was big like that, and he brought it in, and actually immediately it attracted the attention, and people started thinking about like what was the focus of their project, right? So sometimes using object is quite good. And of course you need to use a structure. You need to know from where you start, how you develop your arguments, and where you will end with your presentation. Now we're going to see an example of this. This actually comes from Toastmasters. Do you guys know what is Toastmaster? No. Raise your hand. Only one? Okay. Great. Toastmaster is an association that is available worldwide. There is also a Toastmaster club here in Switzerland and in Lausanne. These are like people that actually meet on a free time basis, basically to improve their presentation skills. Okay, it's like a chess club, but for presentations. Okay. So they meet, each one gives like in turn basically a presentation, then they comment and so forth. But then, the best of the regional level competes for the national level, and then the best of the national levels actually compete for a competition that is organized worldwide by the Toastmaster Association. And what you're going to see here is the first prize winner of the Toastmaster World Competition that happened in 2015. Okay, there are plenty of examples. If you put Toastmasters on YouTube, you bump into like dozens of very good examples of very good presentations. They all have pretty much the same structure. They all pretty much last like a few minutes. But you see basically la crème de la crème, okay, of giving like a very good presentation. Okay, so we are going to watch this for a few minutes, and then we are going to see this again, but with comments, so that we are going to analyze the presentation in details.
Please welcome our next contestant, Mohammed Quatani, The Power of Words. The Power of Words, Mohammed Quatani. What?
Oh, you all think smoking kills? Let me tell you something. Do you know that the amount of people dying from diabetes are 3 times as many people dying from smoking? Yet if I put a Snicker bar, nobody would say anything. Do you know that the leading cause of lung cancer is not actually a cigarette? It's your DNA. You could smoke for years and nothing would ever happen to you. This whole war against smoking is just to restrict the farming of tobacco. Mr. Conference Chair, fellow Toastmasters and guests, I use these arguments, even though I just made them up, with a group of my friends. And the results, 5 of them believed what I said. 2 of them started smoking. Words, when said and articulated in the right way, can change someone's mind. They can alter someone's belief. You have the power to bring someone from the slums of life and make a successful person out of them. Or destroy someone's happiness using only your words. Does that seem a bit too good to be true? A simple choice of word can make a difference between someone accepting or denying your message. You can have a very beautiful thing to say, but say it in the wrong words and it's gone. I have a son who's poor, and he had this bad habit of writing on the walls with crayons. And one evening I walked into his room and he's going at it, just writing and drawing and so on, and I said, hey. Are you stupid? Don't you ever do that again. And guess what happened? He did it again. Nobody likes to be threatened. Nobody likes to be intimidated. His pride would not allow it. He did it again just to spite me. A week later, I walked into his room and again, he's going at it. And this time, he was even looking at me. I came down and said, sweetie, come here. Don't do that, you're a big boy now. And he never did it again. Because his pride wants him to be the big boy. Have you ever wondered why nobody cares about global warming, even though it's a very serious issue? It could kill all of us. Because when you go home and you flip on the TV and you see a scientist trying to talk about global warming, it goes something like this. Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see from the graphs here, the statistics for 2014, it shows the water level is rising. This table shows that the monoxide dioxide level in the third ozone layer is in a very alarming position. The message never get across. But most importantly, if you are a person who's a role model, if you're a person who's been admired, anything you say could be believed. Anything you utter could be taken as truth. My friend Nasser, he loved his father, idealized his father. He would do anything to make him happy. But his father was the kind of person who's not easy to impress. And year after year, Nasser tried, and his father was like, yeah. First year in college, Nasser got straight A's. And he thought to himself, this is it. This what will finally make my dad proud. He picked up the phone, he called his dad. Dad, I got straight A's. Are you proud? Please tell me you're proud, Father. Yeah, listen, son, I have to call you back, I'm busy. I'm busy was the single sentence that broke the camel's back. And he started drinking, doing drugs, hanging out with the wrong crowd. Not so why? Why are you throwing your life away? If the one person in the world that I care about the most doesn't care, then why should I? And one evening I got the phone call. Nas was in the emergency room. Drug overdose. I rushed to the hospital. I saw him on that bed. And I saw that machine go beep, beep, beep. And I saw doctors try to bring him back to life. Clear! 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 It's clear that a single word could have saved this life. Words have power. Words are power. Words could be your power. You can change a life, inspire a nation, and make this world a beautiful place. Isn't that what we all wanted? Isn't that what we are all in this hall? Your mouth can spit venom, or it can mend a broken soul. Ladies and gentlemen, let that be our goal. Come to share.
Oh, so that was, a very good. You probably have recognized most of the things we discussed today. So now the second video I'm going to play, this is actually somebody that commented on the first video. So you're going to see basically snippets of the first video with audio commentary that describes the technique.
This is Charlie from Charisma on Command, and today I'm going to be giving you some presentation tips and tricks. Now, the guy that we are working off of today is actually the Toastmasters 2015 World Champion of Public Speaking. This does, though, apply to a presentation that you would give in any setting, whether it's in work or elsewhere. Because when you stand in front of a group of people, whether you're talking about macroeconomics or the forecasted revenue, or you're telling a story like this guy, you must captivate their attention first. And that's one of the things that we're going to focus on today. So let's get started.
What?
So, this is so huge. How does he start off a speech? There are two big things going on here. One, he starts with a prop. And sometimes that can feel hokey, and you're like, well, how do I do that in a business setting? The truth is, anything that is a physical object that people do not understand why you're doing it, whether you're holding some sort of piece of fruit as a metaphor, I've seen people do that, whatever it is, if you have a physical object, that helps to capture people's attention. And you're going to see that this is the most critical thing at the start of a speech. He does it in multiple ways. Because when you get up there and start to speak in front of people, you have about 10 seconds to capture their attention and captivate them before they tune out completely. So you must do something interesting. Secondly, impeccable timing. This guy is so deliberate, so slow, he commands the stage. So that's just something to look out for the rest of this video.
All you all think smoking kills?
So another quick thing, and I'm going to play this back again just so you can see it all together. You need to get audience interaction absolutely within the first minute. You see a lot of speakers do this, it can feel hackneyed, but they ask people, show of hands, who's seen this before? Show of hands, who's heard of something? You must get the audience moving and speaking and responding to you if you want them to listen and to engage with what you are saying. He does it very cleverly by asking a provocative question. So I'm just going to go back and play that all over again so you can see it together.
What? smoking kills?
So now they are interested and hooked, and he can begin to get into it.
Let me tell you something. Do you know that the amount of people dying from diabetes are 3 times as many people dying from smoking? Yet if I put a Snicker bar, nobody would say anything.
Again, 2 more great examples. He's dedicating basically the first minute of his speech to engaging with the audience, and he does that a number of ways we've covered, but also humor. He makes sure that there are jokes in that first minute. So he's got another belly laugh here, and then that provocative question that he's asking you, you think this? Well, guess what? And now he's going to reveal something else.
Do you know that the leading cause of lung cancer is that actually a cigarette?
Prop again, captivates attention.
It's your DNA. You could smoke for years and nothing would ever happen to you. This whole war against smoking is just to restrict the farming of tobacco. Mr. Conference Chair, fellow Toastmasters and guests, I use these arguments, even though I just made them up, a simple...
So you see, this is kind of an abbreviated version of this talk, but right now we're going to go to the body of the talk. So that's how you need to and must. The first part of whatever your presentation you're giving has to captivate attention. You've got humor, you've got provocative questions, you've got props, lots of ways to do that, but the first minute, do not get right into what you're saying, don't tell them what you're going to talk about, capture their attention. So here, now we're more in the body of his speech, in the body of his presentation. And one thing that you're going to want to have, no matter how dry the subject that you're talking about, is stories. Because people, the human brain, did not evolve to digest and connect with statistics, right? You can talk about global warming or world hunger and how many millions and billions and hundreds of thousands, but the human brain is not persuaded by that. What is persuasive is individual anecdotes. And even though it's a logical fallacy, if you want to move people emotionally, you need to tell the stories of individuals. And this is what he does right here.
Choice of word can make a difference between someone accepting or denying your message. You can have a very beautiful thing to say, but say it in the wrong words and it's gone.
So here he makes his point, and now he's about to launch into a story. That's a great way, bounce back and forth between a general point, demonstrating story, or even start with demonstrating story, what's the point?
My friend Nasser, he loved his father, idealized his father. He would do anything to make him happy. But his father was the kind of person who's not easy to impress. And year after year, Nasser tried, and his father was like, yeah. Fourth year in college, Nasser got straight A's. And he thought to himself, this is it. This what will finally make my dad proud. He picked up the phone.
So notice this is very critical. When you are telling stories, again, even in dry environments, you have to realize that when you're in front of a group of people, you are performing. So you need to get out from behind the lectern, you need to move your body, but you also need to embody characters. If you can take people into the present tense of any story, any moment, that is going to be far more powerful than summarizing it. And if you can go beyond the present tense and act it out, make it vivid and real, play a character, that is going to be something that people can connect with much more and will ultimately be moved to act upon. Because really, when you get in front of people, your goal is not just to say some words, your goal is for them to walk away having had something inside them change so that they behave differently. And this is just a great example of how you can do that. So see what he does here.
He called his dad, Dad, I got straight A's. Are you proud? Please tell me you're proud, Father. Yeah, listen, son, I'll have to call you back. I'm busy.
So you see, this is actually abbreviating it. I highly, highly recommend watching the whole thing. It's much better in its whole pieces. But I wanted to pull out some of the most fascinating pieces. So moving on now towards the end of the speech, he sort of wraps it up. What you want to do when you get to the end of any presentation, in the middle, you'll have told your stories, your anecdotes. At the beginning, you'll have captured attention. It's the end, when people are wide open from being sucked into your stories, from you hooking their attention, that you can drop whatever insight or nugget that you want them to take away. Because if you captivate people with stories, the truth is they are wide open to you telling them the moral. And this is kind of what he does here.
Words have power. Words are power. Words could be your power. You can change a life, inspire a nation, and make this world a beautiful place. Isn't that what we all wanted? Isn't that why we are all in this hall? Your mouth can spit venom, or it can mend a broken soul. Ladies and gentlemen, let that be our goal.
So, you see there at the end, he goes back full circle with the prop, he pulls out the cigarette and crushes it at the end. This is something that is very, very, very popular. I personally find it a little bit cliche in this case, but what a lot of people like to do is come full circle, or start with a metaphor and then come back to it at the end. Again, very, very popular thing. You don't need to force it, as I felt is the case in this speech, but something that you can do. If you want to see more...
Okay, so I get, you got the main point here. There are like additional speeches that you might want to watch to train for next week. There's Toastmasters. Again, if you put Toastmasters on YouTube, I mean, you get plenty of examples. This is also quite famous as well. It's the speech that made Obama president. Also, there is John Antonakis in HSC that actually works a lot with charisma, and he made like a presentation about it on TED Lausanne a few years back. So he talks about many of these techniques basically in his presentation. Also, this one is another very powerful presentation. So I strongly encourage you guys to look at this. Questions? No? Okay, so yeah, so let's take another 10 minutes now and work again on your presentation. So discuss with your colleagues how you might be using some of these techniques in the context of your final presentation next week. Okay, 10 minutes, go.